Hi there, I'm Kathy Barker from Software Solutions, and I just want to have a little korero or a little talk about Microsoft Word. I think it's one of the most misunderstood applications out there. Everybody just assumes that they know Word, and in actual fact, Word has a very particular way of thinking. So let me show you some things that I think everybody should know in Word. First of all, in Word, I've created a blank document, as you can see here, and anything regarding page setup should probably be addressed as soon as possible. The quickest way to get to page setup is really just to double click the grey part of the ruler. So if I double click here, for example, I can set my margins to 2, tab 2, tab 2, tab 2, and centimetres is a given. And if I go OK, I've just changed all my margins to 2 centimetres. If I want landscape, I'll double click and I'll choose the landscape option. And again, it does it to the whole document and then just OK. Another handy trick when you're in Word is to hold the control key and move your mouse wheel towards you to zoom out and see the entire landscape page, and move forward to zoom in. So I use the control and mouse wheel. But if I double click the grey part of the ruler again and put it back to portrait, that's what I want this whole document to be, and then I'll just zoom in a little bit. Get a new document and set your page setup straight away by double clicking the grey part of the ruler, either here or over here or even on the top part here. Now if you don't see your ruler, then you need to go to view and you need to turn your ruler on, and then your ruler will stay on from that moment forward. So I'm going to go back home. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to generate some text, and the quickest way to generate dummy text is to type in Word equals Lorem equals Lorem, open bracket, and then state how many paragraphs you want. So let's say I want 50 paragraphs, comma, and let's say I want 6 sentences in each paragraph, so I type 6, close bracket. When I press enter, this will generate 50 paragraphs with 6 sentences in each paragraph of just dummy text to play with. So this is a great way of quickly creating some text to work with and show people how to use or do things in Word. And I'm just scrolling back to the top. Now another little trick is the keyboard Control End, END. The Control End key takes you to the end of the document, and the Control Home key takes you to the top of the document. So that's really handy as well. Now when it comes to selecting text, there's a few tricks regarding that as well. Just ignore my Copilot button on the left here. But when I want to select a word, I would simply double click it. I watch people dragging from the beginning of the word to the end of the word, and it's really painful to watch. Just double click whenever you want to select a word. Now if you want to select a sentence, say from a capital to a full stop, simply hold the control key and click once anywhere on that sentence, and it will select from the capital to the full stop. Let me show you that again. If I hold the control key and then just click, it gives me this sentence here. So we know how to select a word and we know how to select a sentence. Now when it comes to selecting a line, I would make you put your mouse here into what we call the selection bar area, which is effectively the left margin. Now when you click once there, you actually get a line. When you double click, you get a paragraph, and when you triple click, you get the entire document. So that makes selecting text really quick and easy. Once for a line, twice for a paragraph, and 3 times for the entire document. Notice that my mouse is a white arrow pointing northeast. So you need to be in this situation to make this work. Once, twice, or 3 times. All right. Another way to quickly select all the text, because maybe I want to change the font, is to simply go Control A on your keyboard, and that's a must as well. But I'm going to go back to Control Home to the top of my document. Now another thing is sometimes selecting text with your mouse is rather painful, so I often use the keyboard. Now if you hit the right arrow, you just go a character at a time to the right, and the left arrow a character at a time to the left. But if I hold the Control key and hit the right arrow, I start leaping, not a character, but a word at a time to the right, and Control left arrow is a word at a time to the left. So just the arrow key or the control arrows for a character or a word. Now add the shift to the mix. Control shift right arrow selects a word at a time to the right, because maybe I want to make those words bold, so I press Control B. Or maybe I want them to be underlined, Control U. Or Control U to turn that off, and Control B to turn that off. Now, Control down arrow takes you down paragraphs at a time, and Control up arrow takes you up paragraphs at a time. But if you go Control Shift down arrow, you'll start selecting paragraphs at a time. So these are just little tricks that can make working with Word and even Outlook really quick. Word is the email editor for Microsoft Outlook, so a lot of what we cover in this little sesh or Korero will actually apply to Outlook. And I'm just going to go Control Home again to undo the selection. So let's say I select this paragraph, Control Shift down arrow, and I'm going to make this paragraph bold, Control B, and maybe I'll make it a different color. So I'll just hit this drop down here and choose something so you can see it stands out. And also maybe grow the font size. To grow the font size, we've got this little button here, but also notice that it mentions in the tooltip there Control Shift greater than. Control Shift greater than grows the font size, and Control Shift less than shrinks the font size. So you can work visually until you get the size you're after. Again, this works in Outlook, actually works in PowerPoint as well. Now I want to apply this formatting to a number of paragraphs. So now I want to introduce the Format Painter over here under Cut and Copy. The Format Painter is a lifesaver when you want to apply this formatting that you see to multiple areas of the document. And notice down here it says FYI, to apply the formatting to multiple places, double click the Format Painter. So I'm going to double click the Format Painter, and now I'm going to select maybe this paragraph, just double clicking, maybe this paragraph, and it's automatically applying the formatting I had selected to the paragraphs I'm selecting. I could drag down if I wanted to, or just click once if I only wanted to do a line. Or I could just click on a word if I only wanted to do a word. But when I'm ready to turn it off, I'll simply click this button again. I'll go Control Home and just go through that again. Let's say I want to make this, double click, make this a different color. So I'll make it purple. Now with that selected, I'm going to double click the Format Painter, and I'm going to drag and say actually you, and I'm going to apply that formatting quickly to other paragraphs or text in this document. So it's a quick way of formatting. What I often say when I'm teaching is when you are creating a Word document, focus on the content first. Get the content compelling, and then treat formatting as a separate activity. Once you've got all the content in there, then go through and format it, because you can use things like the Format Painter to make it really quick to format things consistently. And Control Home. It's hard to format things consistently when you're also trying to think about the content of the document. Now if I want to clear all the formatting, I'll press Control A to select all, and this button here, for example, is allowing me to clear all formatting, and it just goes back to how it was. Now let's say I want to get to the end of the document, Control End, and the one thing I see happen a lot is when people want a new page, they go and they press enter until they're on a new page. Please don't do that. What you're doing, let me just turn on this show hide for example, what you're doing is creating a whole lot of enters, and that's depicted by this backward P. So if you were to add some extra text at the top here, those enters will start shifting down the document pretty much like an iceberg. And so you're constantly then battling to try and stop creating blank pages in your document. So don't press enter, enter, enter when you want to go down. In fact, I'm going to backspace those. When you need a new page, simply press Control Enter. Control Enter is a page break, and it means that you're not creating a big collection or an iceberg of enter keys, enter carriage returns that are going to shift through the document. So we've got a page break, and then I can type some more text. So let me just make up some more text. I'll just ask for 5 paragraphs with 4 sentences in each, and so there's some more text. Then I go Control Enter, and I've got a new page because I've just pressed Control Enter to insert a page break, and then I just insert some more text. Maybe I'm after 6 paragraphs with 7 sentences in each, and I've generated more. So the backward P is quite good in that I can see that I've pressed enter, or this is where a new paragraph starts, new paragraph ends, new paragraph ends, new paragraph ends. It also tells me where space has been pressed, and also tells me where tabs have been pressed. So it's quite a handy thing. You can turn it off if it gets too cluttered, but you can turn it on when you want to interrogate what's going on with your document. The shortcut key is Control-Shift-* above the 8 on your keyboard, turns it off, turns it on. I'm going to press Control-Z, which is undo, to undo all those extra characters that I typed in. And now I want to talk to you about what we call section breaks. We know that page breaks are Control Enter and it just forces you onto a new page. But sometimes I want to create some portrait pages and some landscape pages, or maybe some pages have different margins than other pages. Or maybe I've got A4 pages and then a large map, so I want an A2 page. The idea is when you want to create varying page setup, which is done by double clicking the grey part of the ruler, and we looked at that earlier, when you want to create varying margins or landscape and portrait or even varying paper sizes, you need to insert section breaks. Now, section breaks are under the Layout tab in the ribbon, and here's the Breaks button here. Now, because I do breaks so often, I actually find it painful to go to Layout. So I'm going to right-click the Breaks button, and I'm going to add it to my Quick Access toolbar. Now, my Quick Access toolbar is sitting up here, so it's added the button up here. The Quick Access toolbar, I may actually click this Customize option and ask it to show it below the ribbon. So now you can see my Quick Access toolbar is below the ribbon, and here's the button I just added. I can right click and remove it, but if I go back to Layout and right click Breaks, I can add it. So any buttons that you find useful, add these to your Quick Access toolbar so you literally have quick access to them. One that I add in every single application, let me go into the Customize option again and let me go to More Commands, is in the S's on this left hand side. I often add the Save As button. This is something we do all day, every day. We open up a document, we save it as November, or we save it as a different client to save us a lot of typing. And so I'm going to add this button, so it adds it over here, and I'm going to click this button to move it up and pop it underneath the Save option. And I'll choose OK. And again, this will stay like this. So whenever I want to save this document as something, I click this button and I'm immediately taken to here. One click takes me to here instead of going File, Save As, scroll down, Browse, and all this faffing around to get to that particular location. So I'm going to go back, and I'm just going to save it as test. So coming back to the section breaks, I'm sitting at the end of my document, I click this button here and I get the option of 4 section breaks. I can ask that the section forces whatever I'm about to do onto the next page or the next odd page or the next even page. Common practice in New Zealand is that we use next page, so I'm going to choose that option there. Now if I scroll up because I've got my backward P on, I can see that I've inserted a section break as opposed to earlier when I inserted a page break. Now a section break is also verified, if I click back down here, in the bottom of my screen. At the bottom of my screen, it basically says to me that I'm sitting in section 1, and I can see this here, section 1. But if I go to the end of the document, it says I'm now sitting in section 2. Now if you don't see that option there, you need to right click this panel at the bottom and you need to turn this on. In fact, what I'd recommend is that you turn or you tick all the listed options so that you've got a very busy status bar, let me just click away, full of useful information. So it's telling me I'm on page 6 of 6, and it tells me I'm in section 2. But again, if I scroll up a little bit and click here, it tells me I'm now in section 1, and as I scroll back down, I'm now in section 2. So that's a handy visual reference. While I'm in section 2, I'm going to double click the grey part of the ruler because we looked at that as being our page setup method. And I'm going to go to margins. I'm going to say this page actually needs to be landscape. And notice here it says this section, not the whole document. So when I go OK, this section is in landscape and the other section, section 1, which is the preceding 5 pages, are in portrait. As I scroll back down, you can see it here. So maybe I'll put a large picture in. Insert pictures, stock images, and let me just choose any picture and pop it in there. Okay, so I've got this picture sitting on this particular section, and now I want to go back to portrait. So I scroll to the end or press Control End. I press Enter just to get under that picture. That's just a me thing. And I hit my section break button and I ask for the next page section break. It immediately throws me to the next page. It tells me in the bottom here of my status bar that I'm in section 3. And section 3 I want to go back to portrait. So I double click the grey part of my ruler and I go back to portrait and OK. And so now I've gone back to portrait for section 3. In section 3 I might put some text. And then I need another section, and this section needs to be landscape, and it needs to be A3 because it's going to have a really big map on it, for example. So I'll insert a section break. I'll make it a next page section break. I'm in section 4 according to the bottom of my screen. I double click the grey part of the ruler. I'll go to landscape. I'll choose paper size, and I say, no, not A4, A3, and OK. So now I've got a really large piece of A3 landscape in my document. Now down here in the bottom right corner, you've actually got a percentage, and I'm going to click that percentage, and I'm going to choose many pages, and I'm going to ask to see 2 pages side by side, and OK. So what this shows me is my layout of my document. So when I'm in the first section, which is the first 5 pages, I can see that it's A4 and it's portrait. But when I get to the second section, I can see that it's landscape A4. When I get to the third section, it's gone back to portrait A4. And when I go to the fourth section, it has gone to A3 and it's landscape. So let me just put another picture in. So now what I want to do is I want to go back to portrait and A4. I'll click at the end of my document or Control End. I'll press my section break button. I'll ask for a next page section break. I'll double click the grey part of the ruler. I'll go back to A4 and I'll go back to portrait for this section and OK. And there we are there. I'll hold the control key and wheel forward so I can zoom in and actually see what I'm doing, or hold the control key and wheel back if you want to see more of your pages and the layout of the document. I hope you've enjoyed that little korero. I might make a few of these, just really quick ways of just doing common things in Microsoft Word. Ka kite.